Hello, and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. When you're ready to build your next pipeline or want to test out the projects you hear about on the show, you'll need somewhere to deploy them. So check out Linode. With 200 gigabit private networking, scalable shared block storage, and a 40 gigabit public network, you've got everything you need to run a fast, reliable, and bulletproof data platform. If you need global distribution, they've got that covered too, with worldwide data centers, including new ones in Toronto and Mumbai. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/Linode today to get a $20 credit and launch a new server in under a minute. And go to dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, read the show notes, and get in touch. And don't forget to go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/chat to join the community and keep the conversation going. Your host is Tobias Macy, and today I'm interviewing Keld Antonsen and Jesper Søgaard about the data infrastructure and analytics that powers Lego. So, Keld, could you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, hello. My name is Keld Antonsen. I'm a senior data engineer at Lego. I've been with the company for close to 20 years, and the last 15 years has been in the space of business intelligence and information management. And the last 3.5 years has been together with Jesper, sitting that's here next to me, in the big data area and data engineering area.
And Jesper, how about yourself?
I'm Jesper Søgaard. I head up the data engineering and platform teams here in Lego. I've been in Lego for 5.5 years now. The last 3.5, as also Keld mentioned, that has been in this space around data engineering and data platforms. Before that, I've been with various large global companies working in different areas of IT primarily.
And going back to you, Keld, do you remember how you first got involved in the area of data management?
Yeah, I was approached by Jesper actually. He was at that time. That's a lot, about 3.5 and 4 years ago, setting up this team, and we talked together about me joining that team. So that was actually the first time I got involved with the data engineering area. The business intelligence area was pretty known by me at that point in time, but data engineering was not, and the big data was all new to me at that point in time.
And Jesper, do you remember how you got involved in the area of data management?
Yeah, so we probably have to step back 3-4 years so I was involved in other spaces, but here especially in Lego. So we decided that we wanted to. Well, it's actually almost 5 years ago now that there was a product that we wanted to build that would need to capture quite a lot of data that we didn't capture already in Lego. So we were thinking about how do we do that. I should mention I was an enterprise architect at that point, so we were trying to architect a solution for that. And then a function here in Lego was started up called Business Innovation Solutions, and I was part of that. And then they asked me to step in and take that role as the head of engineering. So I got involved in Lego terms in that space out of that one. And then they said, well, the idea was to not do everything the way we used to. So this was a very new space for Lego. This not the BI data space, but the data space and this way of doing it, working with open source and working with other products that normally I should say that Lego is a very SAP style heavy company or ERP heavy company. And so this was something completely different, much more focused around data development and engineering practices. So I was asked to step into that and build a team around that. In the beginning, just a small team. The first part was just figuring out how on earth are we going to do this in Lego and in the context of Lego. And then, yeah, as Keld mentioned, I asked him to step in, and another guy that's also in the team. The three of us more or less started up trying to figure out how on earth do we capture all the data, process it, and make it available for analytics, but also for data-specific products. So that's how I got involved in this.
And you said that at the beginning it was 3 people. So has it grown to have more people in the organization now with more responsibilities?
Definitely. Maybe we can take the organizational aspect of it now. So we were sitting in what was called Business Innovation Solutions, and we were more or less growing, not necessarily that rapid, but we kind of took it in steps. We grew. We were 3 people in the beginning. We quite fast, we were around 7. We had an external partner helping us out as well, like an engineering partner. And then over the years, we grew small. We a couple of years ago, we decided to split it out into 2 different teams, a platform team specifically around the data platforms and data products or data products team. And that grew. At that time, we were probably around 10, 12 people. And if we now look at how we've just reorganized it a bit here going into 19, we're going to have 3 different teams focusing and supporting different areas of the business. And we're roughly around 40. We're going to be around 50 people if you include all the external engineers we have. But the 3 teams are going to be the data platform, and now we call it data platform and operations because we have quite a lot of operational tasks. So one of the things that also happened here in Lego is that we kind of grew from a project base to now an operational type environment for the data platforms and the products. So we had to cater for that. So that's the platform and operational pieces. Then we have a data products team, which is the more classical data products around how do we make data ready for insights, how do we store specific types of data, and how do we build data exposure products. And then the last one is an AI and machine learning more heavy on the engineering side. So that's the 3 areas that are reporting to me. And then we have a sister team that's called Advanced Analytics, which is what classically named as the data science team in most other companies. So we grew quite heavily from just 3-4 people, and then to now, if we add everything up, it would probably be around 50 when the year ends. So for Lego, that's an extreme expansion over the last 3-4 years. Especially the last year has been really heavy. I would say 18 has probably been the year where we expanded the most. And also just the area of business we're now covering. We started out having one specific product for one specific area of the business, which was in an app, to now be across supporting analytics use cases more or less across the board in Lego.
And when you first started the big data group, what kinds of data practices or products were in place prior to beginning it? And what was the transition process like of migrating those different data products or data use cases out of their silos and into a more uniform platform that could be used across the business?
I think for the first question, there was nothing. We started out on a blank sheet of paper. As I mentioned before, we wanted to go and look at open source products. We wanted to utilize best practices from the data engineering practices around the world. So that was very different compared to what Lego has normally been doing. Then normally we buy off the shelf products. So there was nothing in place. So first we had to figure out what products do we need to build. And luckily, you could say the first couple of products we were part of were also apps and products being built by Lego at the same time. So there was no need for an existing infrastructure to be supportive of that. You could say now, as we've moved into other areas, we've started to talk about, and we have been doing migration from more these data platforms and distributions that you would normally use in data engineering. And we've also now, we're probably we are going away from we're talking about big data and business intelligence to just talking about data, which is also a massive step for Lego. So we just see ourselves as having one data organization, even though there's sub elements of that and there's different use cases that are run differently. We're just talking about having one data organization that is supporting the data use cases in Lego. And then it's of course up to us to figure out how on earth do we make that work on the higher end and the top layers. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah, that makes good sense. And in terms of the data organization, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing in terms of managing the data and collecting it and identifying potential sources of data that would be useful to your consumers?
I think that as Jesper said, we started off pretty easy from a data ingestion point of view because we were basically developing the platform together with another product here in Lego. So all the data that we needed for that was sort of being developed along with the platform that we set up. As we have grown in size, we also added more data from a variety of different data sources, external and also internal, and especially when it comes to starting ingesting the internal data, that becomes a large challenge for us. First of all, because it's a lot of data, but also because it's traditional, is sitting in an ERP system, and fetching and getting all that data out of that is a fairly large challenge for us. But it's something that is required for us in order to be this data organization for the whole Lego company. So it's a challenge for us for 2019.
And as far as the types of data products that you're building, is it largely just business intelligence style solutions so that the different product groups can get feedback on the levels of engagement and success that they're seeing? Or are there also more predictive or prescriptive analytics that are driving things like product roadmaps or anything along those lines?
In the area of machine learning and AI. The traditional operational reporting in Lego is still sitting together with the BI organization. But of course, as we span more of the data and as we become more data-driven, we have, of course, have to figure out exactly how we organize that split between the operational reporting, the analytics part of it, and of course the data products themselves that's heavily dependent on machine learning and AI.
I was just going to say some of the products we grew out of was primarily also figuring out how to. When we started out, we talked a lot about how do we actually build products that includes machine learning. So that wasn't at the point when the first product was built. That was not something that was massively being looked at in the industry, especially not here in Europe. So we also had to figure out how do we actually build machine learning products and how do we maintain that. And then it's almost like we have two parallel tracks in the engineering function. We have the machine learning and AI products that we build, and we have a strong capability in that. And then we have probably the more classic, if we can say that in this space, but the more classic products around insights and generation of insights. So a lot of the work the data engineering function does is ingest and store and process the data and make it available for the data science teams and other teams around Lego to build dashboards, to build tracking solutions and stuff like that on top. And then we store the data and make it available. And recently now we also started looking at more real-time tracking, real-time sales tracking, and exposing that to the wider business and working with that. So in that sense, you can almost say it's two parallel tracks, and we kind of had to figure out both as we went along with this team.
And can you give an overview of the platform and components of the platform that you've built out?
It's the platform itself is dependent or built upon a Hadoop distribution. So that's the centerpiece of the platform. And that was a decision we took already from the beginning of this setup. Then the first iteration of that platform was heavily dependent on open source components. So we tried to use as much of the best practice from the open source community on building the platform. Also to learn what it is that to have a platform like this and what can it bring us. The second iteration of the platform is still centered around a Hadoop distribution, but we are starting to add in some commercial products as well in the different areas where we see those products being a benefit for the platform. So today it's a mixture of a Hadoop distribution and then some open source and commercial products around that. But it's a platform that covers the whole stack of data analytics. So we have tools for ingestion, for the R type of analytics, and the more dashboard styling of data visualization, and then of course the whole processing part as well.
I could also say that our second generation or second iteration of the platform also, we started to work a lot more with DevOps and those type of approaches for scripting all our infrastructure. You could almost say infrastructure as code, where as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I should mention both iterations of the platform has been 100% cloud-based, which was also something new for Lego to build up this type of infrastructure in the cloud. So that has also been an interesting journey for us to learn more about the cloud. And I think right now, compared to where we were 4 years ago, I think we know what it takes to run a cloud, and we know how to actually build a cloud-based setup for big data and for data engineering and data analytics functions. So I think, and you can say we've been blessed by Lego being very investment ready in this space for us. So Lego has big ambitions for using data to become more data driven. We are data driven, but become even more data driven and work with data and utilize data, and not just in the classical spaces, but also other areas of the wider Lego group. So I think we've been blessed in that, and it also meant that we've had the opportunity to reiterate our platform again, and we've had the opportunity to actually drive quite a lot of business value through this platform.
Yeah, and especially the part about being able to, or have the luxury of actually being able to mature the platform over a number of years and then iterate on that has been very, very helpful for us, especially in coming into a completely new space for us. So I think that's definitely something that we can say that it's a benefit for the team.
And given that you're growing both of these new capabilities of the data platform and analytical stack, as well as the cloud environment and some of the issues and edge cases around deployment and management of that infrastructure, what have been the most useful strategies for being able to grow and maintain that internal competency and be able to get up to speed and stay up to date with the various technological and platform innovations that are going on in the space?
I think we've used, of course, quite a lot of training, and people are very dedicated in the team to also be up to date. And there's a huge willingness. Sometimes we even have to take a step back and say, well, we're not going with that beta version. So sometimes there's a huge innovation willingness in the engineering team, and it's also the culture we've kind of been working on having in the big data engineering team in Lego since the beginning. It was some of the first meetings me and Keld and the other persons had was around what type of culture do we want to drive in this, and then we actively sought out partners that could help us in different as we grew. So it was a different partner in the beginning that could help us. Just what are the basics around using open source? What are the basics? What do you need to know about using cloud? How do you work with cloud? So we would bring in specialists, and then as we changed modus in Lego around big data engineering, we also needed a different partner that could also support that on a wider scale and bridge it more and be also the partner that pushes us into using new technology. But we're very open, and we have a lot of talks with different partners and different consultancies all the time. We try as much as possible to have the people on training courses and conferences, and we also do speaks and stuff just to keep us on our toes with all this, because as you mentioned, it is hard to keep up with all the new stuff. And we also had products in our stack that we discontinued because the community wasn't there anymore, and so we had to look elsewhere. But that's the beauty of open source. It's also perhaps the other side of the medal, you could say, or the other side of the coin, is that sometimes you focus on a product and then it all more or less by the community gets discontinued. But I think a lot of it comes down to the culture we fostered in the engineering team, that it's okay to actually try out new stuff. It's okay to reiterate what you already done and redo it on a different stack or a different setup. We've done that, especially in the last year, quite a lot on some of the more core products we've had. So in that sense, that's what we try to do. We try to focus on the culture and make room for this innovation, while at the same time have focus on how do we drive business value for Lego. But a lot of the business value has also proven to come out of stuff we looked at and say, okay, this actually looks very interesting. Can we do more with this technology or this process or this way of doing it? And then we showed it to business partners and around Lego, and they say, well, that makes total sense for our business. And then we would try and utilize that. And then we would actually reiterate around the architecture and around the implementation of those quite a lot. And we've been doing that and we'll continue to do that. We're doing it quite heavily here in 2019 as well, especially in the first quarters, to actually rebuild some of our core infrastructure for some of the data products specifically.
And you mentioned that the data group was created alongside some of these applications and products that required being able to consume and analyze the information that they were generating. So I'm wondering how the growth of the data team has been shaped by some of the business requirements and products that you're launching, and how you're working to raise and maintain awareness across the broader Lego group as far as your capabilities and how they have engaged with you as consumers of the platform that you're building?
So I think to up to now, I would almost say up to 19, up to this, we've been totally driven off business projects. So we would have a business partner or somebody in the business asking us to do specific stuff, and then we would support that, either whether it was ingesting and preparation and publishing of data to a dashboard or to a solution, or whether it was actually building a specific product or reiterating a product we've had. So we've been very, very driven off business cases, you could say, to grow the data team, of course. And that's also up to us to tell every time we build a product, maintenance comes along with that, and then reiteration. So we work in an agile manner. So we say, okay, the first product we give you is probably the minimum viable product, and then we would work with you to iterate on it, which has also proven a good way to get the right product out there. So we grew alongside that, and as it worked better and better, we would try delivering more and more business value out of our products. The natural next step was to grow even more, because there would be more business value coming out of either the platform or the specific data products or the tools we're setting up. And then now, I think for 19, we will still be very business case driven, of course, but we actually also took a shift in Lego to also say we need to be at the forefront of some of the stuff we do here. We can't just keep waiting for it. So some of the times we've been saying, okay, we're going to need this in a year's time, but we've been struggling with actually getting that implemented because we were so driven off the business cases. And then once we then come to it, we will almost have to start from scratch in that space instead of being on the forefront of it. So we made that switch now. So we've taken out hours and time and quite a lot of it to actually be on the forefront. That's why we reiterated the platform as one example, because we knew a lot of the requirements coming in now, especially around analytics, would require that our platform had different capabilities. And so that's the shift we will see in 19, is that we will also come out with products where we can see that's because we know the business is going to ask for it, or they're asking for it implicit, but they're not directly asking for us. And then on the same time, that's probably also why we grew so much, is on the same time we will be delivering even more AI and machine learning products to the business.
There is a lot of awareness of this space in Lego. So there are some of course, a lot of people in the business that are looking to us in order to help them out on some of these areas of this technology.
We formed centers of excellence in advanced analytics as well around specific product areas and market groups. So that also means that there's a lot of focus from not just the business, but also the analytics team to set requirements towards the engineering team. And that interdependencies between those two teams also means that we have to shift gear and do things a bit differently than we used to, which is good because it brings more focus on what is the core business value. You could say engineering or data engineering and data platforms here in Lego are a little bit different than the data science team, and probably because we're not totally interrelated. So we have a lot of other customers on the side of advanced. There's no doubt that advanced analytics is our biggest customers and the ones we work most directly with and build a lot of products with. But we also have analytics customers in the wider business or in the wider Lego group that also requires data engineering. And that's also partly why we changed modus on this, and there's been a clear link and clear direction, which has been super cool from the executive leadership team, where we want to go with data and analytics in Lego. So that's been really good, and that's a strong driver also for the investment and in the data team in general.
And as far as the sources and types of data that you're dealing with and some of the types of products that they're feeding back into, is it primarily focused on the digital properties that Lego has, like the video games and mobile applications and websites, or is it also feeding into some of the product lines of the physical bricks and things along that?
I think it's hard to split those two in Lego. We are kind of split, but more and more products we are seeing have a digital element to it. So it's more the themes in general that has both a physical set and a digital set. So in that sense, it's both. and the data we have been picking up, and I should say we are very focused on if we pick up data that is not linked to anything, so we are very compliance heavy, which has also been a long journey for us to understand how to implement this high level of compliance. So you could always take in Lego when we're talking about data that we are picking up, whether it's from a website or from an app or anything else, we always take the highest level of compliance and then pull over all our data products. So we actually had to build like anonymization product. So we have that in the background as well. So we won't have data on the platform that we're not allowed to have or we're not in compliance around. So in that sense, I would say it's more or less all sorts of data coming from all sorts of the business we ingest in the platform and make available. But we are very conscious about what data we ingest and how we deal with the data, and that we are following compliance. I say periods of time, we probably talk more with our legal department than we talk with anybody else, because we want to be 100% sure that we're not doing something that could damage anything or make people's data available or use data we shouldn't do. So we won't do that, and we won't ingest that. So there's a high level of governance around the team as well. So all these sources could come from anywhere, but we're very, very focused on not ingesting or making data available for that matter. That is not something we have either got consent from the user to actually store, or that we have legally we are right to have on the platform.
Which of course means that our data pipeline, ingestion pipelines, can be fairly complicated, because we want that anonymization process right in the very beginning of the ingestion pipelines.
Because of the need for being compliant with these different regulations and being able to ensure that you have a high level of reliability for the end users of your platform, what are some of the approaches that you've built in as far as testing of new technical implementations and monitoring of the existing platforms and various metrics that you're tracking to ensure the overall health and availability of the systems that you're supporting?
Well, on the development process, we run a full CI setup. So we do the full set of unit testing and integration testing to the extent that's possible with the data that we have available. And we try in that process also to cater for any issues that might be in terms of being compliant on the data side. On the monitoring side, it's the same, and operational part it's the same. We're trying to keep a full picture of what is going on our platform and what is going on our system, and especially making sure that the data that we ingest is actually in form and structure is the same as the one that we actually did test at the very beginning of the implementation of that ingestion pipeline. So we try to cater for data sources changing along the way, so that we don't ingest something that we should ingest because the data sources change. So we try to keep that very, very, very structured around that.
But it is interesting because we are talking about across the board, right? So we have all the way from millisecond response time on APIs all the way into data that cannot be wrong, right? So it's always kind of an interesting discussion when we have it in the engineering team, because there's lots of different metrics we measure on. So one would say if we're measuring against a data pipeline as an example, right? Are we just measuring the data is coming through? So all lights could be green, but there might not actually be any data in there. It's just showing green because one row came in, where we were looking for 800,000 rows the last 24 hours, right? So there is always different aspects. And I think that's also one of the products you could almost say that we reiterated on quite a lot, because we needed, as we matured in this space, we also have a higher and higher requirement on the data that is coming in and our products being available at the right time and not down. So we almost had to learn how to monitor a data platform, and then also monitoring our data products, which almost is a completely different thing compared to monitoring data. So we had to learn everything as we went along, as the requirements or rose
Yeah, that is a challenge going beyond that. Just monitoring that things are working, actually monitoring that what they're doing is what we think they should be doing, and what we developed them for. So that's a constant challenge for us.
I was just saying, since we go all the way, especially from AI products, looking at images and image tagging, to recommendation engine, looking at and recommendation engine in the probably in the widest possible term of recommendation engine. It's not just one recommendation; it's many with different requirements to APIs. That has been an interesting task, and then at the same time ingesting data, monitoring consistency in the data, monitoring that the data process in itself is compliant.
Yeah.
And so there's so many levels of monitoring that it almost feels like you could write a book about monitoring in Lego.
That's a book I would read.
I'll let you know when it's out.
Yeah. May take a couple of weeks.
And as far as the technical platform and the various components, what are some of the technologies, either specific tools or broader categories of technology, that you have found to be most useful, and which have been the most problematic?
I think if we look at the data processing part of it, because that's pretty easy, we have been working with the Spark framework for quite a while. And found that very useful. So a lot of our data processing on the platform is built around Spark. On the data ingestion side, we tried out various tools and also trying to build something from scratch but have ended up on a NiFi platform. And the reason for that is that it gives us the flexibility, but also gives us the standardization that we want from our data ingestion part. On the analytics side, it's a mixture of open source and off-the-shelf products. And there, I think we have settled on two products that we find pretty useful there, and we'll probably stay with them for quite a while. It's as I said before, it's one based on R, and another one that's more on dashboarding data visualization. But that's more or less the technology stack that we're using today in terms of what is the most useful ones. But we have tried out different technology, especially on the ingestion part. It's been a journey for us, and there we have tried out a few products that have shown us has been very problematic for us and haven't delivered what we expected.
I think adding to that, right, we also realized that we needed to standardize our way of ingesting, right? So we were doing it in many different ways in the beginning, and we needed a framework to help us. Basically, as I think also Keld mentioned, that we wanted to standardize our way of ingesting. And I think doing that also means that you have to try out quite a lot of different stuff to find out what actually fits your organization and fits your company.
And also the variety of data sources that you have, because it is all the way from the unstructured to the structured data, and finding one tool that spans that variety of data sources is a problem. So that has been something that we have been looking into, and then at the same time trying to see if we can get that standardization on the data that we get in.
And as you have grown to the current level of maturity and necessary reliability, I'm wondering what you have found to be useful approaches for prototyping out some of these new technical implementations while being able to ensure an appropriate level of volume and production type environment to ensure that the prototype implementation is actually going to be able to scale effectively in terms of the data volumes and reliability, and ensure that it's going to meet the requirements that you set out for it.
I think from a prototyping point of view, it's proven pretty useful, the cloud environment that we currently have. The ease of which we can set up things and get something up and running has been very, very impressive, I would say. There is still an element of bringing something from a prototype and into something that is what we could call production ready. We have done it a couple of times now, of course, but it's something that we've done not in the same way. It's been different for every single time we've done it, and we haven't really found the real good way of doing it. And something that we need to look into in 2019, because it's an area where we'll see more come in. So it's definitely a focus area for us to be better at that part.
I think it also links to us as a company being super ambitious, right?
Yes.
So a lot of people want to do a lot of stuff at the same time, and trying to get good engineering practices in when somebody has a good idea also takes some time and some work to do also, because a lot of the times we have to go out and also explain and educate on what the platform can do. So that also is part of it. I think, as Keld said as well, I think when we love prototyping, and there's no doubt about that. And a lot of the times, I think the prototype ends up being a minimum viable product before it's really a prototype. So we are also learning how to then go to market with these prototypes or minimum viable products in a much easier way and a better way with engineering best practices behind it. So it's not to say you need to build everything to the optimal degree if you're trying something out. It's more about how do we ensure that if this prototype needs to go into a production environment or a production, it has to be production grade, you have to make business critical decisions of it. How do we ensure that product can live in our environment and can be scaled? But I think, as Keld said, I think it's been super helpful for us to have the cloud, our cloud environments for that, because it means that we've been able to scale faster.
And how does the global nature of the Lego group influence the overall design strategies and technology choices that you've made for building out the platform that you're creating, and some of the requirements of availability and capacity and being able to maybe span global regions for reducing latency of the end user interacting with your products?
So we always have global as it's almost in the beginning. It's by nature. Everything we built is built to be global. So I think that's how it all started out. If we're delivering specific APIs for specific products, as an example, I don't think we're delivering any APIs in production that are not on a global, or at least a very close to global level. So that, of course, impacts how we do everything around the APIs, and we try to ensure that we can scale on all the different levels we need to scale on once it goes up and down. I think global is one issue. I think the much bigger issue for us is seasonality. Lego is a seasonal product, right? Especially around Christmas, especially if you talk Americas and Europe. We scale up quite a lot. So we also had to learn, and as we built, we always said, okay, we need to be able to scale for Christmas, or scale for Easter, or scale for Black Friday, especially is one of the big things in Lego as well. So how do we ensure that our product, when we design a product that needs to go into production, that's always taken into consideration at the very early stages.
And that's one of the things that always comes up when we go from this prototyping POCs and into the minimal viable products, and then of course into something that is production scale. How do we scale those tools or products up to being able to handle with the demand that Jesper just talked about?
We're not saying it's easy. We're just saying it needs to be in the design from the beginning. Otherwise, it will be hard. It would be hard for us to scale at the right time.
Yeah.
Well, given the ramp up and the fact that you started in a large organization with these global requirements, it doesn't sound like anything that you've done the entire time has been easy, but it sounds like you've had a pretty impressive technical implementation.
We like to think so, at least.
Yes.
Yeah. We are proud of what we do, and we are proud of what we built. I think actually we're probably even more proud of the fact that we can change so fast. We are very change ready, and we can iterate fast over problems, and we can build products both from an MVP start, but actually also production ready with fairly small teams. Like when we built the last recommendation engine setup, we were not a big team at all, but it actually scaled throughout. It's a global implementation alongside the business partner. So, and we did that with a fairly small team. So I think we're pretty proud of what we do, and I think we managed to come a long way. But also having the mindset about learning as we go along, I think that's probably been key to having. It's been possible to both implement the first version, but actually also the second version now, where we're talking infrastructure as code as well, and actually pushing ourselves even more to use these new techniques and technologies that are available out there. So,
but it does require the change mindset.
Yes,
that's key to this, because it's constantly changing, and we just just the technology space is changing so fast, and if we want to keep up, then we simply have to accept that what we do today might change in 3 months, in 6 months time, and we have to follow that.
So it's very, also when we hire internals, and actually also when we also do interviews with externals, we're very focused on the culture. So the people and the mindset and the culture they're bringing in, not necessarily always about do they have that specific technical competence. It's more the mindset about learning new things and adapting to new things all the time. That's really key to the people we have in the team and the way we recruit, our recruitment strategy around this team.
And over the course of building out this internal capacity and this internal organization at Lego, what have you each found to be some of the most interesting or challenging or useful lessons that you've learned?
It's, I think the most interesting thing I've learned when recruiting the team and building up the capability is around especially just how important this whole culture aspect is. So just how do we work together as a team? Also, in some cases, how do we work with the fact that in some cases we have teams in team. So we will have people that work with a specific product for a long time. How do we adapt that to a team structure as well? So I think that's been one of the lessons learned. It's also been, I think, one of the major lessons learned, if I look over the last 4 years, has also been how do we adapt to changing business requirements all the time. So it's not just about here's an agile framework and then go, that'll fix all the problems in the world. For me, that's just a delivery model. It comes back to how do you set up the team to actually adjust to changing business requirements, and how do you work with your business partners to ensure that once we're changing it, we don't necessarily break sprints very often. So, but we do change priorities within sprint, or not within sprints, but between sprints. And so, how do we actually work with that? How do we create a culture where that's okay, and where people do not get discouraged by the fact that they might have to leave a product behind for a period of time, or actually have to make that product go away at all, and then we're not going to worry even more about that. So I think that's been one of the more challenging things. So that's probably more the people aspect to it. And then finding people, that's not a problem. It's not a problem finding people that wants to work with it, but actually both can fit in that culture, but also have this constant urge to try out new stuff and wanting to try out different technologies and different services and different environments and different business stakeholders that have huge ideas about what to do and how do we handle that. So that's probably been the most interesting part of the journey, I think. How do we build up a team that can cater for all that? And also we are spread wide across what we do. We're not a classic data engineering team that sits up and do publication of data, and that's it. We do everything from high-performing APIs all the way to hardcore infrastructure, right? And how do you build it almost like a small company within a company? That has been interesting.
I think that, just in general, I mean, working in a team like this, you just have to love the technology that you're sitting on, and I think that if you look at the way people are working together and reacting on new technology, it's just interesting to see how you can grow yourself on these technologies.
I think also, you have to love technology and you have to love data, right?
Yes.
So I think that also encapsulates what data engineering is. But you're not a software engineer and you're not a data scientist. So you're something in between that actually bridges to both. And so that has also been interesting, finding talent that wants to go in that direction and who can live in that. So and are willing to work with themselves in either or, because they can come from different ways. And I think if you look at backgrounds in the team, it's all over the place. Yeah. But the one thing they have in common, I think, is the love of technology and data and how to bring data to life in an organization.
And what are you most excited for as you look forward to your roadmap for the coming year?
I think Lego is a physical and visual product, right? And both of it is super exciting, just to see how far we can get in using data both for physical and visual products, and Lego as a company. How can we support? Like Lego is very focused around children's play and creativity, and that's super cool and super awesome to be part of. And how can we, with data, help that to become an even better and an even stronger focus not an even stronger focus, because it is the key focus in Lego, but how can we support that agenda throughout? There's so many opportunities in these technologies and the data we have, and we hope that we can influence the rest of the Lego organization to use these technologies. And then I think if we succeed in that, it's going to be awesome, and we have a super exciting 2019 and 2020 and 2020.
We'll just continue,
yeah.
So for anybody who wants to follow the work that you're up to or get in touch, I'll have you each add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as a final question, I'd like to get each of your perspectives on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today.
I have one, which is it's kind of a thing I've been thinking quite a lot. So if you look, especially and it's probably more in the tooling and technology side than it is for the data management side, it's around the cross-cloud possibilities. There are so many, as more and more public clouds become available, and they specialize. They almost feel like they specialize in different areas. It would be cool if someone could orchestrate a solution that could work across clouds, so you could basically pick the best services across the different clouds that are available, and then you could orchestrate a solution below or above that, orchestrating or using different services from different cloud vendors, or even on-prem in that case, right? So you could orchestrate that and make that available. That could be super awesome. I know that's probably going to be almost impossible, because you would need so many different relationships to different cloud providers. But if somebody could come up with a product, and there's probably somebody over in Silicon Valley that's far ahead of what we do, that could come up with a product that could orchestrate across cloud, and so you could have a true multi-cloud environment in your company today, that would be a game changer, I think.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Definitely.
Because then you could basically pick the solution that works the best. Yeah. But of course, there's lots of how do you orchestrate the data across, and how do you make data available for different solutions at different times. And there will be a lot of probably also latency issues and stuff, but that would be, if we can go to that level, that would be super awesome. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank the both of you for taking the time today to share the work that you've been up to. It's definitely very impressive what you've been able to achieve in such a short amount of time, given the number of different capabilities that you've needed to ramp up on. So it's been interesting, and I look forward to seeing what you come up to in the coming years. So thank you for that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.